fans from all around the globe. I am your closing bell host for the day, Riley Magnuson. I am riding solo once again here today for the rest of Wednesday's college basketball slate, touch on a few other things, and then get you out of here ready to go. Obviously, a few games down here today, a couple going right now. Pac-12 tournament right now. Colorado-Washington tied up 66-66 with just over a minute left. Didn't have any action on that one, but that one was a tight spread. Should be a good one there. And that one's obviously either one of those teams need to go on a little bit of a run to get there. News that just came across, though, not the game news, but Wake Forest, Syracuse. Wake Forest wins 77-74. Syracuse not going to be a tournament team either. Jim Boeheim out as I don't know if it was fired. I assume it wasn't fired. It was probably a mutual departure for those two involved there. But Jim Boeheim no longer the Syracuse basketball coach. Adrian Autry going to step in. So after 47 years, Jim Boeheim is out at Syracuse. Not too surprising, obviously, if you've been paying attention. It is surprising for someone to have things locked down at that place to move on, but obviously getting up there in age and also the program just not being successful the last few years. Got a chance to coach his kids, and now going to hand the program over. And like I said, hasn't been too successful the last few years. Even before that, not too much regular season success, but some tournament success, keeping them in there, obviously, there. So that is Syracuse going to move on without him. Not sure if they'll accept an NIT bid if that comes their way or not. But we will obviously see a new man on the sideline next season and beyond for Syracuse there. So, and not a terrible season for them, but obviously 17-15 in a down year for the most part in the ACC, not going to get it done there. So, as far as the rest of the day goes, I know Pitt gets the win against Georgia Tech. Not too surprising, but a team that's kind of on the bubble right now. Had they lost that one, they would have been in trouble. So avoid that one, and I think that not necessarily punches their ticket, but without knowing who they play tomorrow, see if we've got that info right at our fingers here or not. They play Duke, so if they lose that one, they should be just fine still, honestly. And if they do win that one, that'll definitely punch their ticket there. So aside from that, a handful of mid-major games. Actually, Big East, St. John's takes down Butler. Butler, another team, not a very good season either, kind of to be expected this year, 14-18. St. John's 18-14, still trying to make a little bit of a run to get themselves in there. Colorado now up 69-66 with a minute left in the Pac-12, first round of the Pac-12 there. Davidson moves on, takes down St. Bonnie's. St. Bonnie's also not very good this year. So a lot of early in the day, a lot of early tournament games here. Starting any second, though, we've got the Southland final, Northwestern State, Texas A&M CC. Yesterday, I was saying I'm drawing a blank on who Texas A&M CC was playing, but I was leaning towards the underdog, and that one it was McNeese State, and that was a blowout. On the other end, Northwestern State took care of business, but I was interested in New Orleans to at least cover that one, and that one, I believe, stayed within that one there. We've got the Big East, another game 2 of the Big East today, DePaul and Seton Hall, if you're interested in that one. And then kind of a big game, obviously, I'm the Big Ten homer, but Ohio State, Wisconsin at 5:30 my time, 6:30 East Coast time. Ohio State needs to go on win the Big Ten championship here to get themselves in, but Wisconsin, they lose, they're definitely not going to be in the dance, and probably going to win a couple here. So that one's a big one for Wisconsin. And obviously a massively disappointing season for Ohio State. Starting to play a little bit better, so we'll see what transpires there and see what we're thinking. Aside from that, a couple decent games later on in the evening, Texas Tech, West Virginia. And then the other Big Ten game, nothing crazy, Minnesota, Nebraska, Oklahoma State. Solid game there in the Big 12. If you love the Big 12, obviously the bottom two teams, but the Big 12 has been a dogfight. Those two teams are better than their record would tell you there. And then Virginia Tech, NC State, the probably the other power conference game that's definitely got some implications to it. NC State, a bubble team. Virginia Tech definitely needs to go on a little bit of a run. I don't know that they need to win the ACC tournament necessarily, but a win there might get them closer to actually having a chance. And then the Big Sky finishes up tonight. I believe that is the second and only two championship games tonight. Northern Arizona, 12-22, up against Montana State, 24-9. So we will get there in a second, and then we'll touch on some NBA as well. But to get into it, without further ado, tweet as we always do with these solo shows. We can start with that first one, the championship game here, starting up any second. So obviously you might be a little bit late. I haven't been following this one too closely today. The number 1 and number 2 teams in this conference playing on a neutral court here in this one. 2.5, 3.5 is the spread in favor of Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Opened at 3, I believe, kind of teetering back and forth for the most part there. These two teams played twice this season. Texas A&M CC wins them both 65-59 and 83-75 as 4-point underdogs and 4.5-point favorites on their home court there. So I'm going to lean towards Northwestern State covering this one. I could see this one being really close, but again, I'm not the mid-major guy by any means and haven't followed that conference too closely, but I'll give my lean on that one there. DePaul is only a 4.5-point dog is kind of interesting at Seton Hall, or neutral court against Seton Hall, obviously MSG. 9-22 up against 17-14. That's just a big record discrepancy for a small spread there. That seems a little concerning to me if you're interested in the Hall, a team that definitely needs to go on a huge run to make things happen. They have won both the games this season, 71-67 as 4.5-point favorites at DePaul, and now you're again 4.5-point favorite, and 69-64 as 10-point favorites. So obviously the spread kind of landed right where these two games have been this season. But I'll go ahead and say DePaul maybe gives them a run for their money, their last hurrah for the season. Maybe Seton Hall gets it done, but doesn't cover. But I'll lean towards that one. But again, DePaul is kind of a tough pill to swallow a little bit there. Looking curious what the buy-in on that one is. I see actually 82% of public money and bets, I should say, on Seton Hall on the spread, and 70% of money on the spread for Seton Hall there. So maybe buyer beware on the old Seton Hall Pirates there. The other big, Pac-12 game, nothing crazy. Washington State against Cal. Cal 3-28, along with maybe Louisville, one of the dumpster fires of the power conferences for sure this year. I'm going to skip over that one for sure. Texas Tech, West Virginia, 6 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock East Coast time. Out of the Big 12, both teams here. I'm curious what West Virginia is projected right now in the tournament picture, if they are. Last I checked, I believe they are a projected 9 seed right now. So a loss probably doesn't kill you. But against Texas Tech, obviously, Texas Tech had a terrible start to the season, at least Big 12 play. A lot better than their record says. Both these teams are solid teams, just a gauntlet of a Big 12 schedule. Opened up 2.5, now up to 3.5, 4. It looks like a lot of people interested in Texas Tech. This is a tough one to call. I do like it now a little more now that this number is climbing up a bit here. Still a lot of people not believing, the general public, I think, not believing in Texas Tech. These two teams split this season on road courts here. 76-61 win at Texas Tech for West Virginia in January when Texas Tech was not playing well, and then Texas Tech bounces back in February 18th with a 78-72 win as 6.5-point dogs. So the line seems kind of fair here, especially the opening line, I would say. I am interested now that it's especially climbing up to 3.5, 4. If you can catch 4, even grab a hook up to 4.5. I'd be interested in Texas Tech. They've been playing a lot better, as I mentioned. They ended the season scuffling a bit, but lost to TCU as 2-point favorite. They lose 82-83, lose at Kansas, but cover 63-67, and then lose at home to Oklahoma State, which is tough, but I mean, these games are an absolute gauntlet. So I'll go ahead and say it's a coin flip, but I'll lean with the dog, as I have a lot in these Big 12 matchups this year. West Virginia, for what it's worth, though, have been playing fairly well. They've won 3 of their last 4, covered 4 straight. The one game they lost was at Kansas by 2. But having said that, I would respect this one up a little bit higher than this at opening, especially if I was interested in West Virginia. So if you like West Virginia, I can't disagree with you too much. because I could see this game being a coin flip, and maybe you're just taking, a little money line action. But I'm kind of interested in Texas Tech in this one, but could come down to it. This one's neutral court, obviously, Kansas City. But you might see me taking Texas Tech one last time here, and then we'll see. I'm drawing a blank on who they would play, maybe Kansas, but we'll see what either of those two teams are doing tomorrow. UNC playing Boston College in this ACC first round, or second round technically, I guess. First game for UNC. Boston College played yesterday, got the win against Louisville pretty easily there. UNC wins both games this year, 58-47. I'm sorry, that was last year. Only one game between these two teams this year, 72-64 UNC as 14.5-point favorites at UNC. Now you're sticking still with 11.5 on a neutral court. UNC obviously is playing a lot better down the stretch here. If they lose this one, they're in huge trouble for the Selection Sunday. Lost their last game at home against Duke, but before that had won 3 in a row. Two of them kind of, cupcakes. They were on the road, but, the cupcakes of the conference, Notre Dame and Florida State, but a nice win against Virginia at home sandwiched in there for sure. So they are playing a lot better. So I do I'm not touching it. I'm not touching this UNC team. I will potentially be back on them at some point this if they continue playing here in the ACC or get into the tournament. If they're an underdog, I would definitely be interested in them there, but I do respect the number, but I'm not going to be laying these points here with UNC. Boston College, on the other hand, has also been playing pretty well, so kind of concerning that it is as high as it is. But you typically get inflated lines when UNC is playing well, so I think that's what we got here. Moving on down, don't really care about this. Don't have too many thoughts about this SEC game, Ole Miss in South Carolina. If anybody, as per usual, I haven't had the comments up, so if anyone's talking to me, I apologize. So if you got any comments and want to talk about any specific games, hop in the comments, and I can stop and backtrack or jump ahead, no worries. The game that I have skipped over that I am interested in talking about, the Big Ten game I mentioned. This one is in Chicago, United Center, neutral court. Ohio State at Wisconsin. Should be decent showing between these two fans, but I guess I don't know on a Wednesday evening when their seasons have gone like this. But Wisconsin still hanging on for dear life. I'm curious if they are even in the projected field at all here. They are considered first 4 out right now. So if they lost this game, you could pretty much call it a wrap for Wisconsin. They'll be in the NIT. If they win this, you're not punching their ticket by any means, but one more win probably does the trick, I think. I could be wrong, but I think it's Iowa if the winner of this game plays. But you've got Ohio State, a 13-18 team, up against Wisconsin, 17-13, and Ohio State's the favorite in this game. Obviously, if you followed Ohio State, it is one of the more disappointing teams. You could make the case, given the expectations, that they're one of the most disappointing teams, especially with Kentucky and UNC progressing as they have the last month or so. Ohio State didn't hit that progression. They did start playing a lot better this last week and a half or so. So it's a smaller sample size. But their last 4 games, a loss at home against Penn State, but 71-75. So, a game that they needed to win, but it's still a tightly contested game. Penn State fighting for their tournament lines in that one. They beat Illinois at home. They beat Maryland at home, 2 teams that have been playing well coming in. And go to Michigan State and lose by 6 as 6.5-point dogs. And Wisconsin, on the other hand, for a while they had going, back and forth, win-loss, win-loss. As far as their last few games go, they get the win at home against Iowa on February 22nd. Then they lose at Michigan. They lose at Purdue in a close one, and they just barely beat Minnesota on the road, 71-67. So kind of leaning on Ohio State playing a lot better, and Wisconsin was one of these teams when they were, I don't remember exactly what point it was, but they were 3-1 or 4-1 in the conference early, or something along those lines. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I know I'm not spot on with that. They have hit some regressions, and I have not been as impressed with them. They're offensively challenged at times. Obviously, their defense can play really well, and at the end of the day, they're kind of a typical Wisconsin team. They did win the first game between these two teams at Ohio State early February, 65-60 as 7.5-point dogs. So I'm going to go. I actually have got Ohio State on my card tonight. I'm taking it safe with the money line. Definitely do your line shopping. On one spot I saw minus 130. I think on another spot, though, I saw about minus 118, minus 120 for the money line. So I'm going Ohio State money line tonight. up against Wisconsin here to essentially end the March Madness hopes for Wisconsin here. And not saying Ohio State goes on any type of run. They are going to need to win the Big Ten championship to get into the dance, but I do think they've got a good chance to pull off, obviously by the odds, not an upset, but by the naked eye without seeing any odds. A team in Wisconsin that's on the bubble, and an Ohio State team 13-18, number 13 out of 14 teams. Here in the Big Ten, only team that was worse than them in conference was Minnesota. So, plenty of public buy-in to Wisconsin. I am not because of the public, but I am fading the public and going with Ohio State in this one. And that is definitely one that you've got on my card tonight. Moving on down the line, I don't really care to try and decipher what's up with Georgetown here. They are playing Villanova tonight in the Big East at MSG. 10.5, 11-point favorite for Villanova there. Georgetown, if you've got any feel for when to take or fade Georgetown, then please let me know, because I do not. Villanova's been playing a lot better, so that's why you're obviously seeing the 10, 11-point spread there. They just lost their last one there. So, and I think Villanova got both of them this year. One by 16 and one by only 4. So anything could happen in that one. I think I would hope Villanova gets that win there, but you never know. Minnesota, Nebraska, the other Big Ten game, 8 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock East Coast time. Nebraska by 5.5, down from 6.5. This one is tough. Nebraska has played so much better. Jeff and I talked about this Nebraska team. If you restart the first couple of months of this season and put the team that we've seen over the last few weeks, playing from the beginning, this team might be a tournament team. Probably doesn't have the talent to go on a run. They're another team that's got to win the Big Ten championship to get into the tournament. But they've been winning a lot of games. Their last 5 games: win at Rutgers by 10 as 14-point dogs, win at home against Maryland by 4 as 4.5-point dogs, win at home against Minnesota as 7.5-point dogs, but they win by 11. They lose at home against Michigan State, and then they bounce back after that at Iowa with an 81-77 win as double-digit dogs there. So, not interested in them here again as a favorite. They've won both games here against Minnesota. The first one at Minnesota was actually a pretty good, tightly contested game. I just don't have much of a feel for Minnesota. Would say that maybe this one's a little slim at the 5.5, but after the 7.5-point spread at Nebraska, feels pretty spot on, kind of fair with this one. I just have no interest in taking Nebraska as a favorite. I love taking them in a lot of spots, as has I know Jeff has on a lot of Sundays as well with his action parlay, if not during the week. But I believe in almost every single case it's been as an underdog. Maybe I might have had them the first time around at Minnesota as a small favorite. They didn't. I honestly don't remember, but at the end of the day, the point is I'm not taking Nebraska as an underdog, but I assume they should get this one done with how they've been playing. Hopefully they don't take Minnesota lightly. Minnesota 8-21 on the season, so it is a little interesting to see this one as close as it is. But you know what? If you haven't been paying attention to Nebraska, you probably don't believe in them too much as well. So moving on down the line, the other Big 12 game for sure we can touch on Oklahoma State. So I think you can catch both these teams about 50-1 to win the Big 12 tournament. As some people like for some long shot odds here in these conference games. And I think both these teams are probably better than their record would say. They do have challenges though at the end of the day. All right, I think that solves the issue. That was some internet issues, so I apologize. Gonna keep it on my phone to make sure we are back up and rolling. We were on Oklahoma State. Just gonna take a second to make sure the old stream is back up and rocking and rolling. We won't take too much more time here. I think we are back, good to go. So we were getting back to the Oklahoma State game. This is a coin flip. Oklahoma State -0.5, -1 on the line, the consensus from what I'm seeing here. Oklahoma State actually won both these games, 72-56, 71-61. So I would personally feel that it's tough to see them winning this game for a third straight time against Oklahoma. They are pretty close in matchup. For the most part, I've had a lot of times where I've been interested in Oklahoma, and they end up disappointing me. I think I've won a couple with them, but at the end of the day, just leaving something to be desired. And at the end of the day, I've won a game with Oklahoma State in a 55-56 type game, but they can be offensively challenged as well. So I'm going to lean towards Oklahoma getting this one done here and ending this, avoiding the 3-game sweep if you count this one for the season total there. Oklahoma State had not been playing very well. They did get the win at Texas Tech in their last game. Lost a handful in a row before that, but as we mentioned, this conference has been a gauntlet. A couple of them close losses at home against K-State and against Baylor. Oklahoma has won 2 of their last 3, though, at Iowa State, 61-50. Lost at K-State 69-85, and then bounced back with a nice 74-60 win at home against TCU. So, again, I'm going to lean towards Oklahoma. I'm a little hesitant to take it just because Oklahoma's left me standing at the altar, leaves a little bit to be desired. But I'm going to lean towards Oklahoma, and, maybe if I'm bored and I need to scratch an itch, you might see me taking Oklahoma tonight. Virginia Tech, NC State, another I mentioned at the start of the show, another nice game here in the ACC. NC State, a bubble team right now. Virginia Tech, a little further down in the bubble, but if they can make win this game and maybe another one after that, they might have a little bit of a case there. I'm not sure who they would play if they win this one, but maybe a tournament team as of right now if they can get that one on the resume as well. NC State -2.5 is the line on this one. 145.5, 146.5 is the total. NC State lost their last 2. They were playing okay before that. Wins at home against UNC and Wake Forest. Lost at home against Clemson. Lost at Duke, 71-67 there. As a road team, though, this Virginia Tech team has not been very good. Now, obviously, this isn't on the road, but away from their home building, they have not been very good. 2-9 straight up on the road. Again, this is a neutral site, but just away from home have not been very good. They've won their last 3 coming into this one, so might have you feeling confident in them, but it's at Louisville, which, again, obviously that's one of their lone road wins, but we know how bad Louisville has been this year. They win at home against Florida State, and then they just take care of business yesterday against Notre Dame. I was interested in Notre Dame on the spread. Virginia Tech ends up getting the win there. Let's see. NC State's won the only matchup between these two teams, 73-69. So this one's tough to call. I think this line is honestly pretty fair. I'm going to lean towards NC State getting this one done here on the neutral floor. Just not a ton of belief away from home in Virginia Tech. Maybe you could say the same thing about NC State. I guess you could argue. I think they're 7-7 away from home is what I'm seeing here. So a little bit better, a little bit more competent. So I'm going to lean towards NC State. But if anyone disagrees with me, I could definitely see the other side of that one for sure. Not too many games. I'll bring up this last championship game and then move on to the NBA, and then we'll get the heck out of here. Northern Arizona at Montana State for the Big Sky Championship. Number 9 in the conference, Northern Arizona, 12-22. At the number 2 team in the conference, Montana State, 24-9. I think I mentioned what was the spread yesterday. 60-58. I think I mentioned yesterday. Let me backtrack and make sure I'm not making stuff up here. Yesterday, they actually won in double overtime yesterday. Weber State, I think I was interested in the spread in Weber State. If anyone's watching and I'm talking out of my you-know-what and making stuff up, you can stop me. I'm trying to double-check their record because I think it was a similar situation. 18 and 15, it was kind of a slight spread, so maybe not as big of a deal as this one, but a 7.5-point spread up against the 12 and 22 team, number 9 team in the conference. Neutral floor. It seems a little bit slim for this 24 and 9 team here, but Northern Arizona winning a handful of games in a row here. The last few here in the conference tournament, obviously, wins against Iowa, Eastern Washington, and Montana coming into this one, 3 in a row. Montana State has won both these two games this year, has won a bunch in a row in this matchup, 69-54 in early January at Northern Arizona, and then 69-68 at Montana State as 12.5-point favorites. So now only 7.5 after the, only actually down at 6.5 on the road there. Would like to see it a little bit higher for Montana State here. So, again, not the mid-major guy. They've won a bunch in a row here for Montana State as well. Just pumping the brakes a little bit on this late one here in the Big Sky. But it does seem like there might be some public buy-in to Northern Arizona. So I will let you disagree with me if you know these two teams at all. Just seemed a little fishy with this number here. But again, I could be totally wrong with this one. 100%. So to wrap it all up in college basketball, Ohio State is one that I'm definitely interested in. I do kind of lean towards Oklahoma, and I'm more likely to take that one. I lean towards Texas Tech, but I see that one as definitely a coin flip. Oklahoma State, obviously a coin flip also, just kind of like Oklahoma to end the two-game sweep that Oklahoma State has so far on the season. And then you can be the judge with some of these mid-major games here tonight for sure. So moving over to the NBA, and as far as college basketball goes, today's Wednesday. Obviously going to have plenty more to talk about tomorrow with conference tournaments, and we will keep you covered there. Over to the NBA. I know yesterday I was wishy-washy on a few of them. I was the one that I was feeling the best about was Charlotte against the Knicks. Ended up not playing it, kept it on the desk, but Charlotte actually gets the win and ends that New York winning streak there. Let's see. Today's case, my Bulls in Denver, 9-point underdogs in Denver. Denver, obviously, 46-19. They are playing well out of the All-Star break right now. 4 straight wins. -4 at home against the Clippers. They take care of business. -12.5 at Houston. Take care of business and cover. 5.5-point favorites at home against Memphis. They take care of business. And then 6.5-point favorites closing at home against Toronto. Only win that one by 5, so fail to cover, but they have taken care of business. I think this is game number 2 between these two teams here. October 7th, I believe, would be preseason. I'm seeing that one in my last 5 between these two teams. So I think it's November 13th. Denver comes into Chicago and gets a 126-103 victory there. Bulls, I believe, pretty healthy for this one. Both teams, as far as I see, pretty healthy coming into this one. You know what? I not a line that gives me a lot of confidence for the Bulls. I would respect it a little bit lower. They have had some success with this core of guys as a little bit bigger underdogs. So I'm not saying to take the Bulls, but as a fan of this team that is kind of throwing my hands up for the most part here on a nightly basis, unless something's glaring you right in the face with the line. This Bulls team has had some success against some of these bigger numbers here. Should have a sense of urgency. I know they've got at least one day off, if not 2 here, coming into this one. 2 days off coming into this one. They'll get another 2 days off as they travel to Houston after this one before going back home. So a little bit of a sense of urgency to some degree as they're fading out of the playoff picture. So you could see this one as a team that's been, after losing a couple, kind of a decent bounce-back team eventually. Could be a decent look there tonight for sure. Atlanta and Washington. Atlanta -3 on the road in Washington. I believe Washington should be second night of a back-to-back. They just won at Detroit last night, so they're traveling a little bit as well. Atlanta lost their last 2 at Miami, both at Miami. Now coming into this one tonight. Washington, only one meeting so far between these two teams. Washington won the first one at Atlanta as 7.5-point underdogs. I could see Atlanta, kind of bouncing back. These two teams are only 1 game apart from each other, so on paper or, at the top of your head, you think of Atlanta as being a far superior team here in this case, but not quite the case, honestly. So interested to see Atlanta as the favorite of 2.5 here. Not saying I'm taking it by any means, but I would lean towards Atlanta for this one. Let's see. Cleveland and Miami. Cleveland road favorites in Miami here tonight. Let's see. Double checking on the injury news. I don't think we have anything too concerning. Kevin Love in action potentially for the Heat here tonight up against his former team. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Hero, all good. Mitchell, Jared Allen, all good as well. Mobley as well. Cleveland playing pretty well right now. Miami kind of back and forth a little bit. They've played a lot better from what they were early in the season. Haven't been, scorching hot out of the All-Star break, but they've won 3 of their last 5. Again, as I just mentioned, they just won their last 2 at home against Atlanta, so now 5th straight home game here, 2-2 on the homestand so far. I'm going to lean towards Cleveland taking care of business as the road favorites in this one. But again, if you like this Heat team, if you felt some success with them, I don't know. This one seems like a coin flip. I'm gonna take my hands off of it, but I'll go ahead and lean towards the Cavs there. Let's see. Oklahoma City at Phoenix, 13.5 point spread. That feels pretty hefty. Still no SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Suns obviously rocking and rolling now with Kevin Durant in the lineup. They've been pretty good with him back in action so far in a couple games, 3 games I think now. All wins. Offense looking fine. 125-104 against my Bulls on the road. 130-126 on the road against Dallas. So now the official first home appearance for Kevin Durant. Definitely an inflated line. It does feel like a statement, especially with OKC winning their last 3 games here, even without SGA. So it does feel like a statement, but you're obviously getting some type of an inflated line with Kevin Durant coming into his home debut with Phoenix. I honestly don't think it's a terrible idea to consider OKC at this spot here, plus 13.5, whatever it is, unless there's some more injury news, with OKC that I'm not seeing with Lou Dort, Giddey, or any of these other guys that might not be playing if I'm not getting the right information. But at the end of the day, I think that's a few too many. I'm not saying take it. It's a popcorn game for sure with Kevin Durant's debut, but I would say pump the brakes. And, as much as I'm sure he's trying to make a statement, this one does feel a little bit inflated there. But wouldn't surprise me if they, put up 130 points as well. So last game of the night, this one's on ESPN, 9 o'clock. My time, 10 o'clock East Coast time. Toronto at L.A. Clippers. Clippers minus 2.5 at home. Let's double check any injury updates. I don't see anything too pressing, especially obviously for the Clippers. Paul George, Kawhi, I believe, are good to go. Just about everybody is good to go for Toronto here. L.A. just won their last one after kind of a rough stretch a little bit there. They just won at home against Memphis by 6 points as 7.5 point favorites. Now down to 2.5 here against Toronto, who's played a lot better. They are kind of going back and forth so far out of the All-Star break, but they've been a lot better than what they were. Defense is playing solid. Offense still a little inconsistent, but with the 2.5 here and the 230 at the total, you know what? I don't hate either Toronto getting to where they're going or even holding the Clippers down a little bit. So I'm interested in Toronto. This would be the one spot that I'm interested in here, maybe in the NBA today, would be Toronto plus the points to take care of business and potentially get this road win. I could see them continuing to go back and forth. Clippers still struggling a little bit out of the All-Star break. They obviously got their last win, but would have respected at least 4.5, 5 for a Clippers home game. Maybe there's some injury stuff coming out that we're unaware of, and Kawhi or Paul George or both of them might be sitting out, and that's why you're seeing the line where it is. But if both of those guys are playing and this line is sticking right around where it is, I'm definitely interested in Toronto here tonight. That would be the one look for me out of the NBA tonight. So without further ado, we will wrap up and get out of here. If you didn't see it, I've got my golf blog for the Players' Championship this weekend up on the ECSI site, East Coast Sports Investors site, and my personal Twitter over here. I'll make sure I pin that one to my page so everyone can find it a little easier if you don't want to go to the site. But you should check it out. The site, Jeff Dawson and company has been working very hard on that bad boy. But go give that one a look. Aside from that, stay tuned for some other shows coming up tomorrow. I know Jeff's got some good stuff planned. Not sure if he's got anything going on tonight. I know I dropped the ball yesterday previewing. He had Scotty Webb on talking some baseball, so not sure what the rest of the evening, if anything, looks like tonight. I think I might be the wrap-up and the cleanup crew for the CSI media group here. And I do know we should have some more action coming down the pipe tomorrow as conference tournament weekend moves along and heats up. We should have a really nice slate of games tomorrow that I'm excited for, next 2 days especially. So once again, you should see at least one of us here on the closing bell, and I'm sure there's some other shows lined up during the day. But without further ado, thanks for stopping by, everybody. Don't hesitate to reach out to me on Twitter if you want to laugh at me for something I did on the show, a bad pick or anything along those lines, or the opposite. My mentions and DMs are wide open. So thanks, everyone, for stopping by. Best of luck tonight. Let's keep the March Madness rolling along and the winners rolling. It is a time to cherish here on the sports calendar. So thank you, everybody, for stopping by. I will most likely see you all tomorrow.